You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello, Vinny. Yes, I did hear. Looks like the Freedom Project helped get him out, so that's really good news. Well, you know, I've been telling people for a very long time, not everybody locked behind bars is guilty as charged. There's the justice system, with all its success, there's a few that just slip through the cracks, and that's true either way. So we just gotta keep on top of that kind of stuff. Wait a minute, you broke up. What? Ah, that's good news. So they're helping you as well. Good. Glad to hear it. Well, yeah, I know it's been a long fight, and we shouldn't have to go through this kind of stuff. But that's what America's all about. We find people, we do an investigation, and there's a conviction, and there's plea deals, and we can get high end attorneys. There's all kinds of little things that can break the mold and change things around a bit. But what we need equal justice for all, and that's just not happening. And now's a good time to bring it to the public's attention and get it out there so that we can make some changes and get the job done. That having your supportive relationships work with you like that is fantastic. And I it's just, to me, it looks like everything is working for you in your favor. And so yeah, I've talked to a few of the people, and I know you had some stuff that were put out in the press, and so that's what we're looking for. And okay, and see, that's the big thing I want. Prison reform is on the top of my list, and I've run into a few people that are innocent, and they would like their story to get out there. I can get the story out. I can get some support from the community. But the big thing is up to you guys. And if you share that with other people in there who feel that they've been wrong. And another big thing too along that line is long sentences. We've got people in there that commit a minor crime and they're locked up for a long time. And if you could get out and do some advocacy, that would be fantastic. No, of course, I 100% support that kind of stuff. And I can understand your excitement. Your buddy got out thanks to some support, and you're second in line. And I recommend it to people as much as I can, because we don't need innocent people locked up. It costs thousands of dollars a day to keep somebody locked up, and to put people in there who aren't even guilty because of sloppy detective work. When I was in law enforcement, it took me a while to get an arrest, and there was not always a guarantee that there was enough evidence to
You have
convict.
60 seconds remaining.
Not even enough evidence to even bring the trial or bring the case to trial. And so there's a lot of work that's involved in it. And when people aren't overwhelmed, and I imagine a lot of law enforcement is, and they just want to get things out of the way, and they don't want the press knocking at their door and criticizing them, we get caught up in stuff like that. And we got to help them, give them more funds, give them more resources, give them more manpower.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
I know, all of that crazy defund the police, I'm completely against that. They just need better resources, better training, and we can get community support when crime goes down. And the best way to get crime down is to lock up the guilty people and put them in there for the proper sentence. That way people know. Yeah, it might not. We'll see. Well, thanks for calling and thanks for the good news.
Thank you for using Inmate Call. Goodbye.
Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call, and I'm your host, Joel Wilborn. And in this episode, I want to touch on the U.S. justice system. Now, for anybody who's been through the justice system or dealt with it, we know that it's a great system and does a lot to convict criminals, get some violent people off the street. And when you watch documentaries and news reports, or if you listen to podcasts, you can get some story on some of the investigative techniques and how people can bring people to justice. And then you can see somebody that you think has finally convinced the jury and the judge and the community of their innocence, but find out that the justice system convicts them. And I know I've talked to a few people that are incarcerated and they feel comfortable. It's like, yes, I committed a crime and I received the right sentence, and they're quite content, and they'll speak out and give advice to other people. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you can find them under the Oxyword playlist, and Violent Criminals on the Mend. And so I enjoy tapping into those resources because they give some fantastic advice. And there's something that if you're in kind of a bad situation where people are in your family and close to you committing crimes or thinking of committing crimes, you can have them listen to some of these videos of people who are actually sitting behind bars. And who knows? Maybe one person will be touched. We don't know. But the only way we'll fail is if we don't let them listen, or if we don't talk to them about it, or if we don't pay attention to the people that are close to us. And there's a few things out there, a few resources that I'd like to share. I know out of Renton, Washington, we have the Freedom Project, and they're very similar to the American Quitting Society, where they're helping people get out and stay out. And they're offering resources and advice and support. Great for your supportive relationships. Just fantastic for that. And there's also the Innocence Projects, which it's got a lot of people that come to them, but there's only a few that it can actually take. And it helps people that are innocent get out. And it's bad enough to keep throwing everybody in prison for long periods of time, but it's even worse to put somebody who's innocent. Now, one person that I met a few years ago, while she was locked up, was Maryann Atkins, and you can do a internet search on her, and you can find some very interesting stories on her. Now, she was 16 years old when she committed her crime, and she just got caught up in a bad situation, and that could happen to any teenager. What's bad is that when she goes into the court, it was just so biased, and the justice system, as much as we want it to be equal justice for all, there are times where it tends to lean toward affluent people who are of the majority race, like white folks and males. And so with Maryann, she goes into this courtroom, and her victim was a black man of the Liberian nationality, and his family came in supporting him, saying he was this wonderful person. Now, Maryann went to jail, and the people in jail said, you don't want to go to trial in court because you could be sentenced for years, 25 years or more, maybe even life. It's best just to take a plea deal. And this little 16-year-old girl, she's scared. She doesn't want to go to jail for the rest of her life. She's looking forward. She just wanted a comfortable life, with friends and family and a lot of support. But things that a lot of us take for granted, she wasn't getting. And so being locked up wasn't something that she wanted to do. So she was looking into this plea deal. And it wasn't the best plea deal. And it had her agreeing to accept the guilty plea on something that she didn't do. But she just didn't want to go there for a long time. But she wound up getting 19 years. 19 years for a 16-year-old. The judge said she was lying. Now, when a 16-year-old is arrested and threatened to go to prison, and police officers are not the nicest to people that they catch, especially those that don't deny it. I did kill him. And she knew that. And she knew she had to go to jail for killing him. But it's just the reason is why we go to court. We sit out and show our defense. This is why I killed this person. This is why I committed this crime. And in her case, the judge just didn't believe her. And so when you're telling the truth and nobody's believing you, so you start lying, and then somebody's saying, okay, you're just a liar, it's mind-boggling. Imagine that for a 16-year-old girl who's scared to death. And so here she is, she's pleading guilty to murder, and the judge has already considered her a liar. So now she's telling the truth. He'll believe that. He'll believe that she's guilty of this, but he won't believe the circumstances behind it. So to me, that's biased. And he and the prosecution, they go out after this conviction and say she was just this terrible person and she was planning to commit a crime. And when you look at the evidence and all that stuff that could have gone up to court, well, I'm sure the system said, well, she's guilty. And she didn't deny that. She did kill the person. It's just that I guess they just didn't want to go to trial. They didn't want to give her a chance to prove that she was telling the truth and that she felt scared. Well, after my daughter and I looked at this case, and she was just thinking, I wonder how biased they were toward her, the defendant. And with Maryann, she was saying she's this little white girl that goes in with all these black folks, and then they just stuck it to her, making it look like when she was saying this guy kidnapped her and raped her, the family was saying, how dare you talk that way about our loved one? Well, word on the street was he wasn't quite this fantastic, outstanding citizen that they made him out to be. So I convinced Maryann to do some interviews on Oxyword on my YouTube channel, and she gave some good advice, talked about things she wanted to do. It wasn't anything about how she was railroaded or innocent. She was a teenager. So she was just talking, and you can hear that. She's just young and wanted to get her word out. Well, one day, I asked her just to tell her side of the story. We could read the news, you could do the internet search on it, and you can hear their side of the story about how terrible she was. But hearing her side of the story, it's quite different. She doesn't qualify for the Innocence Project because she did commit a crime. She should be locked up. But the reason behind it was different. And maybe if she had gone to court, maybe if a jury had heard her, they wouldn't have sent her to prison. And we'll never know because we had a teenage girl that was scared. And the way the judge was speaking anyway, and giving her 19 years when maybe 25, for murder, you could see other murders. And she even talks about it, where the people get less time. And she's thinking, well, why is this person who killed a child getting 10 years, and then I defended myself and I'm getting 19? And that is scary. But there's a book being written about her. I've got some stories on my YouTube. And there are a few people who are looking into her story. Maybe they'll understand what had happened, go back, look at the evidence, and I'm sure if we did something like that, we could get her a less. We can get her released a lot earlier than 19 years. But it requires a little extra work, and a lot of people in the justice system don't want to do that. And one of the things that I look at when I look at her case is she has a lot of valuable information she can share. Now, I was able to go to one of her graduation ceremonies when she went through a little training session and motivation session, and her coworkers were just saying she's a wonderful motivator, and she's a great she gives great advice, and she's kind, and she's very helpful. And this is something that she's just making the best of what she's got. You know, she got her degree in cosmetology, and when she gets back to the Washington Correction Center for Women, she plans to get back into the cosmetology department, which currently is closed because there's just not enough people. But you have this certified cosmetologist. You can get it back open again. A lot of ladies over there would be happy. Now, I did talk to her sister, who said that if she had a little bit more money, she would have been able to get a better attorney. And that could be the case, and that could have happened. But she was one of those that were just on the biased end. And when I was doing the story for her, I reached out to the family, because their Facebook page, they're all smiling, they're happy. This 19-year-old, well, she was 19 when she was convicted, but this 19-year-old got 19 years, and they were happy. So I said, well, you want to talk about this? What's this about your loved one? And nobody wanted to respond. There was kind of, you can look through the Facebook page there, and you can see a lot of strife was going on. So if somebody I love very dearly, like I have a fiance, if somebody murdered her, I wouldn't go silent. And if somebody was bad mouthing her, saying that she brought it upon herself and she caused all the problem, I would question it. But if people were saying, yeah, she was doing all these terrible things. Now, she's incarcerated, so maybe she was selling drugs, and maybe she was beating people up, or maybe she was doing things with prison officials and making shady deals and smuggling contraband. And listening to people who knew her and worked with her, it would be easier to say, well, maybe this woman that I love so dearly isn't everything I thought. And I would keep an open mind about that. And I do love her dearly, and I do support her. But there are times people could just change. And I was engaged to Paula Gardner, and her mentality and her disposition, everything changed. She just became a different person after getting terminal cancer, which is acceptable. So people do change, and people sometimes, once they start a crime, they just get into that spree and just can't stop. And I'd have to look at it like that. But if we were married and been together for years, and then she got killed, and they were telling me she was this terrible person, I'm thinking, I spent most of my time with her. I spoke with her. We worked together. I never even had a chance to see her break away and do this stuff. And if they do an investigation on it and find out she was an innocent person, she didn't do these things these people were saying, I would want the justice system to look at the people that were setting her up. And so with Maryann, these things happened in her life, that they were sending text messages out. And you should know that if you get a text message from somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person that the text messages are registered to is the person that sent the text messages. Sometimes somebody hacks into the account, or steals the phone. There's various reasons a person can get into it. And Maryann said these text messages were sent by somebody else. But rather than look into that, they were saying that she was the one that did that, and she pre-planned this this theft, and she goes to his car, this 21-year-old, she's a 16-year-old, and just uses his gun and shoots him, and that's her plan all along. I don't know. But the family didn't speak on his behalf because they figured out that he wasn't everything he was cracked up to be. And yes, I understand people loving their family members, but there are times that one person will betray him. And this guy is the classic case for that. And they went and defended him, and he's gone. He's 6 feet under. If he was being threatened to go to prison for a long time, I could see them jump out. But once your loved one is gone, and the people left behind are saying, "We're sorry for your loss, but he was a terrible person, and he set himself up. He got into the situation where it was dangerous, and he knew that. He knew there was a chance that he could get killed in this kind of field. It's like you go out and you deal drugs, you know there's a chance you could get killed. If you skydive, join the military, join the police force, there's a chance you could get killed. And so it's kind of hard to feel sorry for somebody that puts themselves into a dangerous situation. But, you know, we don't want people to get killed doing their regular stuff, like law enforcement or military. But we all know there's a risk there. And in crime, there's a risk of being killed. No way about it. My fiance, she committed a crime. She could have been killed. And the people I work with that are sitting in there, they could have been killed. And if they get out and continue crime, there's a possibility they could be killed. You get into that field, there's a chance you could die. It just goes with the territory. He gave them this impression that he wasn't committing any crimes. But now we know, and I'm going to broadcast that. If they ever want to comment or say anything, they can. But what can they say? How can they say he was this good person? There were 2 people in that car. One of them walked away, and that one person knows the full story. And she shared it on my YouTube channel. And hopefully you can listen to that and come up with your own conclusion. Does it sound like she's lying? Does it sound like she should have gotten 19 years? But you got a case like Clay Starbuck, who said he was innocent for killing his ex-wife. The circumstances around that seem kind of shady. I watched that on Forensic Files. But the Innocence Project is coming in to help him. There's a good chance he could get out. He's had a lot of tragedy in his life. And so this would be nice for him to get his story out there. And then you have another person that I shared his story on my YouTube channel, Shane Goldsby. He had the person who raped his sister put in the cell with him, and he winds up killing her. But he's the bad guy. He gets 25 years in solitary confinement. Well, not necessarily solitary, but he's in the hole, so to speak, and being watched constantly. Which, you know, if you're going to put a victim and a perpetrator in the same cell, you're going to have to keep an eye on that cell. And so his story should be heard too. 25 years for a mess up that the Department of Corrections did. That's why we advocate. That's why we keep this stuff in the public's eye. Because the justice system sometimes can get a little crazy and a little out of hand. And it just needs to be put back on track. And I don't oppose the justice system. I like it. But we need to get the Department of Corrections to follow their policies. We need to get the justice system to keep an open mind. There's a blindfold on that Lady Justice in the scale, or for the scales of justice. And so it shouldn't be race, gender identification, or economic status. It should just be the facts, just like that old TV show. Just the facts. And then maybe we can balance things out a little bit. But I encourage you to listen to Kimberly Carter on my podcast. And that's a bonus on this podcast. And then listen to Greg Brown, who explains how he was railroaded and innocent and thrown into prison for life. And listen to Maryann Atkins. She's a good person with a good heart and soul, and we should all take her advice. You know, she's just been there, and who better to give good advice about getting out of bad situations than those who've been in the situation. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you talk with your family, friends, and your loved ones. Keep an eye on them. See if there's anything out of the ordinary that happens. And hopefully you could be that person that they turn to and help them get out of a crisis just because you're there and you listen. It's not very difficult. And then seek the resources to do the right thing. Well, have yourself a fantastic day and make awesome memories for tomorrow.